Hey guys, how are you today? Quick rant before we dive into today's chaos. As some of you might have noticed, YouTube's algorithm has decided I'm not special anymore. Shocking, I know. So now if you don't like, comment, or do a little backflip in the algorithm's honor, this video might just vanish into the void, never to be seen again. Seriously though, even a hi or "this is wild" in the comments helps way more than you think. It tells YouTube, hey, people actually like this channel. Maybe don't hide it from everyone. That can really help push my videos out to a wider audience, not just to my subscribers. So if you enjoy these stories and want to support the channel, that's the best way to do it. Now grab a drink, get comfy, and enjoy the drama. You won't want to miss this one. Okay, Reddit, grab popcorn. You're going to want to sit down for this. I have chronic stomach issues. Going out equals anxiety city, because I never know when I might get sick. And yes, it happens often enough that it's a legit concern. I rarely go out, but my childhood out-of-state bestie invited me to an event. Dad lives nearby, so I thought, cool. I can crash at his house for a few hours if I get sick. Important, emergencies cannot be planned. Getting sick and expecting my family to help me has nothing to do with etiquette or maturity. Rules I laid out. Won't interact with anyone. Separate room. Leave in the morning. Not insisting, not arguing, just a safety plan. Texts with Dad. Me. Can I stay a few hours if I get sick? Dad. I'm busy tomorrow and away Saturday. Me. Could I stay overnight anyway? I'd leave in the morning. Dad. No, it would inconvenience my mother-in-law. She's selling her other house this weekend. Pause. What? My quiet separate room presence is catastrophic for someone selling a different property. Texts with stepmom. Me. I normally would not text you like this, but I figured it was more your decision since this was your mother. If I get sick while I'm out, can I stay at the cottage? I will sleep in the room above the detached garage even. I won't interact with anyone. Stepmom. No bathroom, no bed, and plenty of spiders. Oh, not a good idea. Me. Guest room? Stepmom. Nope. Maybe if I knew in advance. With everything going on, mother-in-law selling her other house. Not a good time. Me. I'm hurt. I'm not arguing. I just need a safe place for a few hours. Stepmom. Surprised someone your age keeps insisting. You have no idea. Not getting into it. The end. Me. I wasn't insisting. I wasn't arguing. I just wanted to express how I felt. Getting sick and expecting my family to help me has nothing to do with etiquette or maturity. Stepmom. Not attacking. It's about etiquette. Have a nice weekend. Remember you are loved. Seriously? Not by you. Recap of absurdity. Chronic medical condition. Asking for a few hours of safety in case of an emergency. Offered separate room. Leave in the morning. No interaction. Denied because it inconveniences mother-in-law selling her other house. Stepmom. Shocked. Lectures me on my age. Ends with the end. Getting sick and asking family for help is not about etiquette or maturity. After this circus, I blocked both of them and went no contact. Reddit, am I the a-hole for finally putting my health, anxiety, and dignity before people who treat my needs like optional background noise? Not the a-hole. I cannot believe they told OP that her presence would inconvenience someone selling a completely different property. OP wasn't asking for a vacation. OP was literally planning for a potential emergency due to a medical condition. The way OP's dad and stepmom treated her health like an etiquette violation is disgusting. OP didn't go no contact over one rejection. She went no contact over being treated like an afterthought by people who should have protected her. And now let's hear community's opinion. This made my blood boil. Surprised someone your age keeps insisting? No. I'm surprised two full-grown adults couldn't extend basic compassion to a chronically ill family member who was just trying to make a safety plan in case of an emergency. You didn't ask to be pampered. You asked for a room. A room. And they hit you with the mother-in-law selling her other house excuse? They're lucky all you did was go no contact. I'd have sent them a thank you card for showing me exactly who they are. The "remember you are loved" from your stepmom after she dismissed your medical needs, told you to sleep in a spider-filled garage, and scolded you like a child. That was the icing on the gaslight cake. People like that want to deny you basic support, then slap on faux spiritual emojis like it erases what they just said. You did the right thing going no contact. They chose convenience over compassion, and now they don't get access to your life. Not the a-hole doesn't even begin to cover it. You made a plan that was respectful, low impact, and transparent, and they turned it into a lecture on etiquette? Meanwhile, you're managing a real medical condition that impacts your quality of life. This wasn't about manners. This was about them not caring unless it's convenient. You deserve better. Blocking them was self-care. Stay no contact and don't look back. Update. It's been 2 years since I went no contact with my father and stepmother after they refused to let me stay at their home for a few hours during a trip out of state when I had a flare-up from my chronic stomach condition and simply needed a safe place to recover in case of emergency. I wasn't asking for much. Just a quiet room for a few hours or a night. No interaction, no drama, no demands. And they made it abundantly clear that my presence would be a burden, that I was being immature for even asking, and that their weekend plans revolving around my stepmother's mother selling her other house were more important than my health, my comfort, or basic compassion. My stepmother's messages were laced with condescension and snark, ending with a passive-aggressive, "Have a nice weekend, remember you are loved," which was rich coming from the same woman who couldn't spare a bed or even a spider-filled garage for her chronically ill stepdaughter. I blocked them both, removed myself from the circus, and spent the last 2 years rebuilding my boundaries, learning how to ask for help without humiliation, and trying to move forward without the gnawing ache of being treated like I was disposable by people who should have cared. I never heard anything meaningful from them after that. Just a few surface-level attempts from my father to check in that I ignored because I knew any conversation would lead back to guilt-tripping or gaslighting. I didn't need closure. I needed peace. And for a long time, I had it, until this week. Because out of nowhere, my father showed up at my doorstep. Not a phone call, not a message. He just appeared at my home like no time had passed, like no harm had ever been done, and started talking like we were in the middle of a normal father-daughter conversation. I stood there stunned as he explained that his business was struggling badly, that he was underwater financially, and that he needed a favor, specifically a loan. He said he wouldn't be asking if he wasn't desperate, that he didn't know who else to turn to, that things hadn't been easy for him and my stepmother lately. He didn't mention the fact that she still doesn't work, that she refuses to look for a job, that she contributes nothing financially while he scrambles to keep everything afloat. And yet somehow, they both thought it made perfect sense to come ask me. The same daughter they shut the door on 2 years ago, to help them now that the tables have turned. I told him no, flat out. No excuses, no long explanations, no emotional hand-holding, just no. Because when I was vulnerable and sick and asked for nothing more than a clean room and a bed, he said I would be an inconvenience. He let my stepmother insult me, dismiss me, belittle my needs. And he backed her up with silence. He chose her comfort over my safety. And now he wanted compassion from the same daughter he abandoned when I asked for a single night of shelter. He said I was being unfair, that I was comparing two completely different situations, that helping someone with money isn't the same as asking to stay the night. He said I was holding a grudge and being cruel. He said family should support each other during hard times, and that I was being cold and heartless. And that's when I lost it. I told him he didn't get to decide what was comparable and what wasn't. I told him that my medical condition is not a personality flaw, and that being vulnerable and sick and needing a place to stay wasn't a childish tantrum. It was a moment where I reached out to someone I loved and trusted, and they slammed the door in my face without hesitation. I told him that trust, once broken, does not regenerate magically just because you've run out of better options. I told him not to bother calling me again, not to try and act like we were family now that he needed something. I told him that when he made his choice 2 years ago, he made it permanent. And I closed the door. He walked away, and I didn't watch him leave. I went back inside and made tea. I haven't heard from him since, and I don't expect to.
I, 46 male, am getting married to my fiancée, 39 female. We've been together for 3 years. I have 2 stepdaughters, 18 female, 9 female, from previous relationships. My youngest's mother left when she was 6. My fiancée is a very sophisticated person and has exquisite tastes. She also does not really care for young children, and this has created tension between her and my youngest daughter. While our plans have been delayed due to global circumstances, our plans to get married are finally going ahead. It's going to be a very lavish and expensive wedding. Due to the nature of the wedding and my fiancé's preferences, our wedding is also going to be child-free. We will, however, be inviting our oldest as she is no longer a child, and because unlike my youngest, her and my fiancé get along well. However, I didn't realize that my youngest expected to come to the wedding. She tried to tag along with my fiancé and oldest when they were going shopping for a dress for my oldest, because she thought she was going to need a dress too. I explained to her that the wedding was going to be for adults only, and that she wouldn't be attending. She started crying and getting mad, which stressed out my fiancé. She has been distraught about this for days and hasn't let go. My parents came by to visit today, and my youngest told them what had happened. When they asked for clarification on the situation, I explained to them that my daughter wouldn't be attending the wedding because the child-free rule applied to her as well. Besides, this wedding would not be suitable for a child, and I don't want my fiancé to have to deal with my daughter on the most important day of her life. My parents told me I was being a terrible father by prioritizing my fiancé over my daughter, and that on the day of the wedding, they would take my daughter out for a special day, which means they wouldn't be in the wedding. I told them they couldn't do that. Even if they didn't attend the wedding, I wouldn't let them take my daughter. This has become a bigger conflict than I intended. My fiancé and I both think we're in the right for wanting a child-free wedding, but it appears I may lose my parents from the wedding over this, and I want to know if I'm in the right or not. Am I the a-hole? Yeah, dude, if your fiancé and a 9-year-old don't get along, that's because of an issue with your fiancé. How can you even say, unlike my youngest, her and my fiancé get along well? She's 9 years old. She is a child. It's not up to her to get along with your fiancé. You're the a-hole. You have kids, are marrying a woman who doesn't like kids, are surprised that your younger daughter, who will be a family unit with you and your fiancé, would like to go to the wedding. Go shocked Pikachu face when your parents call you out for being a crappy father. What better way to let your kid know that they don't matter than to not include them to the ceremony celebrating your union to her new parent? Solid gold a-hole. You're the a-hole, OP. What do you do for an encore? Drop your youngest at a bus stop and wish her good luck in her new life? Throw out her things and turn her bedroom into a walk-in closet for the missus, who has refined tastes? Not let your daughter eat dinner with you? Why would you marry a woman that doesn't like children when you have a young child? Her life is going to suck, and these types of occurrences, your daughter having normal expectations, hopes, but being constantly left out, will happen regularly. Not to mention the possibility of her growing up to resent her older sister, who will always be allowed around your wife and the fun activities. Yes, you're the a-hole for choosing a woman who will always put your kid in the background. My cousin is very famous. Yes, you have heard of him. And no, I won't tell you who he is. We'll call him Terry. When we have family functions, mainly for holidays, Terry likes for them to only be family, so he can be himself and get drunk and pass out on the couch and share Hollywood gossip with us. Otherwise, he feels like he is being interviewed and having everyone talk to him or want a picture, and he has to be in promo mode. He said it's because he was tired of having to meet strangers and not be able to let loose, and there were some issues of these partners taking pics of him or spreading gossip. I hated this at first because I would be dating some chick and she would want to get to meet him, and it's awkward to tell them that they can't come to family events, and they get mad that they never get to meet him. My Tinder has a pic of me with Terry. But I get it, so I was fine with it. Until this year. I began dating this chick in August. I couldn't bring her to Thanksgiving. Fine. But when I walk in, I see another cousin, Danielle, has brought her boyfriend, Steve, even though they've been together for less than a year. They got together over New Year's and engaged on Halloween. Terry was fine with this because he's met Steve before. Old family friend. Even though I've been told that no exceptions are allowed to his rule. Thanksgiving sucked because the whole time I was mad that I once again wasn't allowed to bring my girlfriend. My girlfriend consoled me after, and I realized that she is my soulmate. 2 weeks ago I proposed, and we got engaged. Christmas was at my aunt's. I'm a believer in ask for forgiveness, not permission. So I brought my fiancée because she had nowhere else to go, and I wanted her to meet my family. We walk into the house, and all hell breaks loose. Everyone was asking who she was and scolding me about the rules, and Terry flipped out. He was already buzzed and looked 20 pounds heavier than he usually presents himself, and started yelling at me for doing this to him. He didn't seem excited at all about my engagement or willing to introduce himself to her. Our grandma was telling Terry to get over it and asking to see the ring and saying that she wished she had gotten my fiancé a gift, so grandma was on my side. But Terry was still arguing with me and said I shouldn't be allowed at any more events, and he ended up calling an Uber Black and leaving before we even ate. To top it all off, my uncle, who was never even liked Terry, got upset because apparently Terry was his secret Santa, so he didn't get a gift. So my uncle started blaming me for ruining Christmas. I get they are mad, but it was clear there was an exception for fiancés, and I'm embarrassed that my family was so rude to her when I just didn't want her to be alone on Christmas. Am I the a-hole? A-hole enthusiast 9. You're the a-hole. You could have asked. You could also not use your famous cousin as a pick on Tinder. You're the a-hole. The two situations weren't the same. Your cousin knew the other person, unlike your girlfriend. Getting engaged that quickly is also shady as duck. If you don't like the rules, don't go. Spend the Christmas with your new fiancé. You wrecked Christmas because of a tantrum and games. And your cousin knows not to trust your judgment because you sell your link to him. You don't add to his privacy. You resent you can't use it to your benefit. Give a serious apology. You were bang out of order. You're the a-hole for this. I'm a believer in ask for forgiveness, not permission. That's an obnoxious way to be. You could have spent Christmas just you and your girlfriend. Then she wouldn't have been lonely, and you wouldn't have broken the established rule for family gatherings. There wasn't an exception for fiancés. There was an exception for Steve. What you do if you want your family to meet your fiancé is you set up your own engagement party. You don't turn family Christmas into your personal celebration. It's somewhat shady you use a picture of you with your famous cousin on a dating app. Clearly you are using him to attract girlfriends for yourself. Backstory that explains some of this. My dad dated Anna on and off from the time I was 13. In their one extended off period, almost 2 years, she had a daughter and was pregnant with another daughter. They got back together while Anna was still pregnant, and were back on their on and off relationship. For the most part, they lived together through all the off parts of their relationship from the beginning. The only exception was the off part when they were apart for almost 2 years. It was rough living there when they weren't together. They brought other people back and were generally just toxic and had a crappy relationship. I moved out of Dad's house and in with my grandparents when I was 17. It was a lot for me. I had never bonded or had any kind of love for Anna or her girls while I lived with them. I was just trying to survive the upheaval my dad was putting me through. I don't even remember how old the girls were when I last saw them. Pretty small though. A few times Dad would tell me to be their big brother or whatever, but he was more wrapped up in Anna. They broke up a few months before he died 2 years ago. He and I weren't really talking in the last year of his life. So Anna has been diagnosed with some neurological disease and reached out to my grandparents to raise her girls. She has nobody, doesn't know the bio fathers of the girls, doesn't have any family she's in touch with. She was deep in D and alcohol for years, and they disowned her over it and were not interested in hearing from her again. And no friends left. My grandparents said no because they had nothing to do with the girls and had not considered them surrogate granddaughters. To be honest, even before Dad died, I was the only person in his house they had a relationship with. They didn't see Dad anymore because of how he was. Next up was me. She tracked me down on social media and told me she needed to talk about something important. She explained to me that she's sick, and I could see it in the way she was walking and talking, and she knows the girls are too young to survive when she gets worse, and she wants better for them. She said after years of being their brother and of living with them, she wanted me to take the girls and raise them and let them visit her, but once she's gone, to be the family they don't have otherwise. I was shocked, and even a little pissed if I'm honest, because Anna was asking for something huge for me for people who were essentially strangers. We were never a family, but she was acting like we had been at some point. She saw how I was reacting and said my dad would have wanted me to do this, and to think about how I lost my mom and dad, and how I should consider her girls. It pissed me off so much I told her I didn't want her kids, and I walked away. She asked me how I could do this to her girls and called me a jerk. She told me when they end up bounced around in foster care, I will only have myself to blame. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. I feel for these poor girls, but that doesn't make them your responsibility. If this situation is a criticism of anyone, it's society in general, not you specifically, and of course Anna. She's not wrong to ask, but she is way out of line guilting you about your dad and calling you names. Not the a-hole. Those girls are not related to you at all. Anna and your dad's toxic relationship was something you shouldn't have had to deal with. You owe her nothing. Yes, it's sad, but those girls were never your family. One suggestion for the mother is that if she wants to keep her girls out of foster care, is to contact an adoption agency and start that process. Hopefully she will be able to meet any prospective parents and be allowed to determine who will raise her girls. She would then be able to rest easier knowing her girls are in a good home. Definitely not the a-hole. My brother Richard is nearing his 40s, yet his biggest priority is living a trendy lifestyle. Things like vegan challenges, backpacking for weeks at a time, and extensively vlogging his life every day on social media. He constantly crashes frat parties and tries to hang out with college kids. If Richard only had to worry about himself, I would say it's his own life and not my place to judge him. But Richard has 2 young children. My niece Adelaide, who just turned 7, and my nephew Parker, who is 5. Adelaide and Parker are being raised by my parents because their mother has issues with addiction, and Richard is never there for his kids. Whenever he happens to visit my parents' house, Richard responds to Adelaide and Parker like, "Oh yeah, you're here too, I guess," and just blows them off. He's never shown up to a single appointment or event for them. Richard tries to justify his blatant neglect by saying, "Well, I have a lot going on," as if billions of parents don't also have a lot going on and still raise their own ducking kids. Adelaide's birthday was in October, and Richard didn't show up, didn't get Adelaide a present, and didn't even wish her a happy birthday. He only called back days later and wasn't even apologetic. Richard just made the excuse that, "Well, I have a lot on my plate," because his friend's launching an Etsy store that sells personalized mugs. Richard knew months in advance about Parker's first day of kindergarten, ditched it to go on another backpacking trip in the Andes, then expected us to praise him because he beat some personal backpacking record. Richard ran into me at the grocery store and immediately started saying how pissed off he was because he went to my parents' house just as Adelaide was showing our grandparents a poster she made for school. She included an animal drawing of every member of the family except for Richard. Richard asked where he was, and Adelaide just told him, "You're not on here," and blew him off. Richard tried to say how Adelaide and Parker don't realize how good they have it, because most kids would be so proud to have a cool dad who keeps up with trendy things and is interested in what kids are doing nowadays. I was pissed. I told Richard that he's not a trendy college kid. He's a deadbeat to Adelaide and Parker, and he doesn't deserve such beautiful and all-around amazing kids when he's not even a dad to them. Richard insulted me back, but I didn't care, and just left without finishing my shopping. My parents agreed with what I told Richard because we've been gentle too many times in the past, and it clearly wasn't working with Richard. My parents are on the verge of disowning or disinheriting Richard because of his neglect. But several family members, mutual acquaintances of Richard and I, reached out to say that the way I publicly tore into Richard didn't accomplish anything except to be cruel. But I feel it had to be said. Am I the a-hole? If I could skywrite not the a-hole, I would. Kids at that age do not give 2 craps about how cool their parents are. They only care about time and attention. Not the a-hole. Most kids would be proud to have such a cool dad. The fact that you didn't decapitate him on the spot puts you in the running for sainthood. What a self-important, oblivious, narcissistic jerk. It's bad enough he ignores his kids to be a child, but to then act like he deserves a medal for it, and that his kids are lucky to have him? Insufferable. Richard sounds like a narcissist. Thank God the kids have your parents to care for them, but his utter lack of interest in them will be something they will most likely deal with for decades to come. You're not on here. Yeah, because you basically don't exist, Richard. Do your parents have legal custody, and does he give them any money? Not the a-hole. What did he do? Cry to the relatives and acquaintances that you were mean to him? He sounds unbelievably self-centered. My fiancé and I, 28 female and 29 male, recently moved in with my mom. My dad passed away around 6 months ago, and my mom has been having a really hard time, so we moved in with her so she wouldn't be alone. She asked it as a favor, and my fiancé and I accepted. Co-living with my mom isn't ideal at all, because she's overall a very controlling person, but we mostly try to ignore her tantrums and keep the peace, so she can overcome her grief the easiest way possible. Few notes. My mom doesn't pay anything from her own pocket since the day we moved in. Everything in the house is paid by my fiancé and I. My mom has her retirement money but doesn't spend any of it. She constantly says she's out of money because she does the grocery shopping, but it doesn't add up because her retirement salary is around the same amount as my salary and my fiancé's salary. She ends up begging for more money, but whenever I don't give to her, she says I'm taking advantage of her and that I should be ashamed of not financially helping her more, when me and my fiancé actually finance everything in the house. Fiancé and I also work remotely, and from 9 to 5, we need quiet hours to work. At first, Mom didn't respect that, but eventually she adjusted. Brother, who I'll mention later, works but doesn't like giving away his money and contributing. So my brother's wife filed for divorce after several horrible encounters, which I will not go into much detail about. Him and I don't have the best relationship, and my fiancé despises him. When my mom invited him to stay home from now on, I said there's no way. He's not going to contribute anything financially. He's going to make my fiancé feel uncomfortable with the way he acts and talks. He doesn't respect boundaries or quiet hours and makes much noise, even during our work hours. Plus, he's a horrible person we don't wish to have around. My mom said she can't turn her kid away, and he's my brother. I should be more compassionate, and after all, it's her house and she doesn't need my permission. I said fine, but it's either us or him. And since she wants him, my fiancé and I will start preparing to move out. My mom now believes we are horrible for turning our back on her and my brother, and has shamed me to my entire family for not supporting her like I should. She disowned me and called me a disgrace of a son. My fiancé said we made the right choice, but I'm scared if I messed up in any way, and I'm the a-hole. 100% not the a-hole. Sounds like you made an excellent choice. I hope you follow through. Living with your mom, you're not building any equity for yourself, and she doesn't appreciate you anyway. Not the a-hole. Your mother is pissed that she won't be able to continue to take advantage of you financially once you move out. Well, not at the level she has been anyway. She'll probably still play the sympathy card to get you to give her money. You moving out is the best solution for everyone but your mother. Not the a-hole, but 3 words. Move out now. Doesn't matter if she wants him there or not. She is emotionally and financially being aggressive to you and your wife, and now wants to add a creep to the mix. And when you try to play the very reasonable boundary of not wanting the creep near your wife, she starts the guilt trips and insults. Maybe you, out of your own grief, feel like you owe it to your dad to take care of her, but you don't. Get away from this woman, because I'm pretty sure your wife is 10 times more fed up with her than you, and if you don't pick her now, well, you'll be on the same boat as your brother.